Hey, I'm very happy to have Alex here today. And we're going to talk about wildlife expeditions and also about the transformation that he went through in his life to give you some inspiration. And Alex and me were meeting, I think, 2 years ago in Sri Lanka on a trip on a boat. And we also met last year in Los Angeles again. So I'm very happy to have you here now, Alex. And maybe you want to like introduce yourself a little bit. Where do you come from and what's the field you're working in?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really love all the stuff that you do. So thank you for having me and having this little chat. Yeah, since we met 2 years ago in Sri Lanka, it was funny. We met out there trying to find whales, and I think the success wasn't super great in terms of finding wildlife, but I think it was a really great time. Got to meet some really great people, and that's when we first connected, right? And so it's good that we've been able to kind of keep that connection all the way through. But like you mentioned, so my name is Alex Pham. I grew up in Vietnam and emigrated to the US. Did most of my schooling and education near Southern California. And for a long time, I worked in finance and social impact finance in different ways. I worked at large investment funds. Then I went into the economic development and social impact field. I spent a lot of time working in Africa, working in Southeast Asia, working with nonprofits, social impact businesses, and investing in social impact businesses, right? That was something that was really amazing for me and something that was a dream for me in so many ways. I went to graduate school as well. And, this was something that I really enjoyed doing, but I also always had this other side in my life. I've always loved the ocean. I've always loved wildlife. I've always loved deep exploratory adventure type of travel where you kind of get deeper and really learn and develop a connection with the place that you are in. And that was always something that was a big part of my life, but always something I did for fun. But a few years ago, I decided to kind of take a break from what I was doing before just to explore a different version of myself for a bit and invested a lot more heavily into doing wildlife and being with whales and filming whales specifically. And that just developed slowly and then quickly into what I do now, which is leading like wildlife expeditions, right? So it's always funny how these things happen. It was both a little bit accidental, but also planned at the same time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. What would you say, like, what's the passion that you're living? Is it more the wildlife or the investment? And how do you merge it together to combine it in once?
Well, I think it's both, actually. I, I guess I'm different from, I think about it differently than some other people where I think oftentimes people will switch because they were really fed up or didn't like what they were doing before or didn't feel like it aligned with their values. And I totally get that. I think those are all like really valid reasons for doing something. For me, I think I've been really lucky in that I've really enjoyed everything that I have done. Um, None of them have fulfilled me completely, right? But I really enjoyed all the different parts of my life and all the different things that I have done. It's just that when I started doing this, I wanted to be a different version of myself and build a different version of myself for a bit. For so long, I have been focused on policy and economics and helping people through an economic way, right? Working with social impact businesses that were helping the poor in some way, right? And I love doing that, but it involved a lot of sitting at a desk. It involved a lot of just being in my head all the time, right? And so I just wanted to do a slightly different version where, like, what I get to do now, it's very physical. It's very outside. It still involves a lot of what I did before in terms of business building and strategy and developing all these things and being able to connect with people, which I really love. But it allowed me to just explore a different version of myself. And that's why I really like it a lot. And so I didn't give up the previous version of me. Like that's still in there, and I want to keep that. I love doing investments. I still do a lot of it on my own, and it helps enable some of the stuff that I do with this wildlife business, right? I still think a lot about policy and how to improve people's lives. I think that's always going to be a part of my life, right? But now I also get to do this, which has been really amazing and rewarding. And so I guess that's how I think about it. I just want to keep, I don't know, stacking things on top of each other. I don't feel like I necessarily have to let things go. I just want to keep building on these all these different sides of me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who are listening to the podcast, they can totally identify with that because this like multi-passionated or like multi-interested. I mean, I feel also really similar to that. I love business. I love wildlife. I love all the ocean stuff. So combining everything, being a coach pretty much combines everything for me and gives me the freedom to be able to travel and explore, but also helping people to transform their lives. What would you say? How did you start with the wildlife expeditions? Like you had an idea and were like, oh wow, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Or did you meet some people who introduced you to that? Or how did this idea become reality?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll tie it back into the point you just made in that I think one of the biggest disservices that we often do when talking to people is that I think we often frame things as doing like one thing or the other thing, and that you have to make a choice between things, right? And that to do one thing, you have to kind of give up certain aspects of other things. And I think some of it is true, but I think sometimes we think when we think about it in that way, we're almost doing a disservice to ourselves because I think a lot of like great things in life come from combining different things and different skill sets, right? Like what I do now would not have been possible if I had not done what I did before, and set up my life in that way before, right? And so, like the way I got into wildlife expeditions was, like I said, I worked in finance and then I worked in social impact investing, right? And during this time, I also took a number of long breaks to travel and just do different things. Like I took a long 7 month trip, a long 8 month trip, and I was living in Africa. That was where I did a lot of wildlife things to begin with. But I've also been a scuba diver for a very, very long time, have done a lot of trips related to that in my life. And it was actually back in 2014. I was in Australia on a liveaboard in the Great Barrier Reef, just doing some diving there when I came across two Japanese photographers. They were working on a project there, and I started talking to them. And one of them had a particular focus of photographing whales, particularly sperm whales in Sri Lanka, right? And that was something I had never even considered as a possibility in life before. Like, I never thought that was a thing that people could actually do, right? Before I saw his work. And I was really blown away by it. That not only was it a possibility in life, but that he had accomplished so much with it. And I found it incredibly inspiring. And so I was in the midst of kind of like a long 8 month, just like scuba diving, extended trip at the time. And I changed everything I was doing almost immediately to kind of focus on whales at that point. Booked my first trip to Tonga to go see some of the humpback whales there. I did some more things in Australia with some of the minke whales, and that was kind of my start. And so I had always been super interested in wildlife and the oceans. I'd done so many things with sharks and manta rays and scuba diving before, but that was my first toe in the water with whales. And for a long time, that was just something in the background for me, something I did for fun as I focused on these other parts of my life. But again, after COVID, a lot of things were changing in my life, and I wanted to just I felt I had learned a lot in what I was doing before, and I wanted to learn something new, right? And I also wanted to take a step back and figure out whether I wanted to keep being the person I was. Because for a long time, I was, Alex Pham, economic development person, social impact person. That's what people knew me as. That's what people associated me with. And I really liked that people associated me with those things. But I also wanted to take a step back and think, was that the person I still wanted to continue being? Or was I kind of trapped in this identity and just doing it because I liked that people thought I was this person, right? And so I just wanted to take a step back and figure that out for a bit. And as I was basically taking a sabbatical from my work, I just focused completely on wildlife, on whales, on photography and videography around it. And I guess I have this personality, like when I do things, I really go into them. I have a deep passion for the things I do. And I guess naturally I just developed more and more experience in it. People started asking me to work on projects with them. I started guiding, and one thing led to another, and I felt that this was something I really loved. This is something I was really good at. And like I was saying before, I had set up my life both like in terms of life structure and finances and things like that to help enable flexibility later on. And so I was also in a position where I could pursue this in a way that made sense to me. And so that's how it all started. Again, like partly on purpose, partly accidental, but it's turned out really wonderfully, I think.
Yeah. What would you say what was your most special trip that you did so far with the wildlife stuff? And why? Like, why was it so special to you?
That is a really, really hard question. It's hard for me to pick out specific ones. I guess here, maybe this is recency bias because I just finished leading a few trips in Norway, but I think my favorite wildlife trip is Norway. I mean, I love all of them for different reasons, but Norway to me is just so special because I think the peaks of experiences there are unmatched anywhere else. What happens in the winter in Norway is that all these herring fish come from offshore and go into these small, narrow fjords in Norway, where they're concentrated in really, really, really small bodies of water. And because they're all concentrated there, that attracts huge numbers of orcas, humpbacks, and fin whales that go there to feed. And it's actually a really recent phenomenon. It's only in the past few decades that's really happened in this way in Norway. And partly that's an accident of nature, and partly that's an accident of some of the collapse of herring stock in Iceland and different things. But what happens now is that what you get to see there in terms of all these whales feeding and all these whales concentrated there, and the density of wildlife is just, it's a type of thing you see on wildlife documentaries, right? And if you're lucky, you get a chance to experience that. And the if you're lucky part is important because it's so challenging there. It's so hard. It's cold. There's weather, there's snow and ice and wind, and there's only a few hours of daylight each day. The conditions themselves are so difficult, and the wetsuits you have to put on are difficult. But I feel that challenge actually enhances the experience so much. You really have to earn it there in a way you don't in other places. And when it does hit, and when you get to see orcas and humpbacks and fin whales feeding on bait balls of herring there, it is just one of the most like heart-stopping, exhilarating, incredible experiences you will have. And so that's why like I think whether you're seeing mountain gorillas in Uganda or river dolphins in Brazil or humpbacks in Tonga, French Polynesia, and Niue, they're all incredible in so many ways. But for me, there's just nothing like the challenge and the incredible like highs that Norway has. So that's probably my favorite personally.
So, how many degrees is the water? Because you guys are jumping in the water to be with the orcas, right?
Yeah. So the air temperature is usually around like 0, -5, something like that, right? The water temperature is around 5 degrees, right?
Mhm.
So it's pretty cold. It's not intolerable because with the special wetsuits that we use, they're called open cell free dive suits. And even though they're quite tricky to put on, and I really have to show guests how to do it with the proper lubrication and things like that, when you're in the water itself, it feels really warm,
Mhm.
actually. Almost no one has a problem in the water. The difficulty is when you get out of the water back into the boat. Sometimes you do feel chilly there, but that's why recently we've switched to using like a much larger heated boats, and we provide like jackets and ponchos for people, right? But it's the way I would describe it is this: before people go, if it's their first time in Norway, everyone is always so apprehensive and scared and nervous about what it's going to be, right? I even had a guest recently that practiced for a week beforehand by putting her head into ice water, right, to practice the sensation, which I loved, right? But I think what's interesting is the very first day we go on a safety dive, like a tr test dive to, after everyone has their equipment and charted on and we talk about what's going to happen, we just go somewhere in the harbor and just get people into the water so they can feel what it's like. And almost everyone's first reaction is, after being so scared, so anxious, is, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's almost like anticlimactic, right? And it's such a relief for people to just get into the water and feel that it's going to be okay. And so, yeah, even though it is a challenging, hard environment with the right equipment, it's not, it's definitely manageable. And like, I think it's actually a really great feeling in like a lot of ways, right? But, it's nerve-wracking at first, but it's almost always so much better than people expect.
I think that's a good metaphor for life in general because it's a lot of things that people are scared about before, but once you experience it, actually it's pretty like yeah, not that hard that you would imagine it would be. And especially I think for trips who are far away, because a lot of people they're like, oh my God, how can you travel? Like last year I finally also went to French Polynesia and me myself, I was also like nervous before. I was like, oh my God, 30 hours flight, going on the other end of the world and stuff. Or I don't know, Asia for me was more chill to go somehow, because it was more well known for me, I think. But also there, I mean, you never know what's happening in the wildlife. I wasn't even planning at that time to go with whales or anything, and happened to be in Sri Lanka in the end, even though I started my trip in Thailand. Um, and I think that's the cool thing if you're just gonna give it a try, find it out, because I have to say my biggest transformations in life, the personal developments were through travels, meeting different cultures, being open to meet new people. And I mean, in the end, I went for this blue whale trip, and as you mentioned, we didn't see any blue whales, or maybe a minke whale, or maybe one blue whale from the far. I'm not sure
Mhm.
anymore. But in the end, the people that I met throughout the way there were incredible. I remember this one weekend where we were all on the boat, and we were seeing, I think, pilot whales. And I've never been in the water with pilot whales before as well. It was just
Mhm.
amazing. Or 500 spinner dolphins. And I think these are moments that you can't pay money for that. It's like you can't like get moments like that for money. Like it's something that you will never ever experience again, probably. It's like a one time, what, how do you say it? One out of a lifetime experience. So yeah, I think it's very special. And you also mentioned that you did a special trip with a family. I don't know if you want to talk about it. Um, where you really like were able to help to realize a dream of a family, right?
Yeah. I think you just hit on like such an important point in that the most amazing and worst and most addictive part of doing these types of expeditionary style trips, particularly the ones that involve wildlife, is that they are so unpredictable, right? You never know what's going to happen each day. You don't know what's going to happen each time you drop into the water and what it's going to be like. And the bad part about it is that it is so unpredictable. It's not like a scuba diving trip where it's very well laid out. You know you're going to dive 3 times a day. You know what the dive site is, what the plan is of the dive site. You know basically what you're going to see. And there's some really great things about how predictable that experience is. With this, it's totally unpredictable in that we really have no idea what each day or each drop is going to bring. And so sometimes that leads to periods of long, extreme boredom. basically, as we are searching, not seeing anything, waiting for something to happen.
But that's a
And
fair
then
point.
those,
I have to one thing just with the boredom
Mhm,
you're saying.
mhm.
For me, the these like long times where you're just sitting on the boat, just watching on the horizon many hours, or just like we had like a couple of hours where we were just swimming and without seeing any whales sometimes. But honestly, those moments somehow gave me the most creative thoughts ever. I had like ideas. Like I always take a notebook with me because I'm getting so many incredible ideas, and this boredom is very necessary because it's creating a space to let new input come in, especially when you're in the ocean, far out. There's no distraction, no Wi-Fi, no communication beyond that. So I know what you're pointing to, but for me, actually, these moments are totally like meditative. It's just like so many cool
Well,
ideas
completely,
popped up in my
completely.
head in that time.
Yeah, completely. And I actually think again, that's why, like I say, it's the worst and also the best part of it in the sense that these long periods of boredom or uncertainty or searching, it's such a necessary part of the experience because it makes what you feel so much more intense and special when you do find something and when you do have that encounter. And because it is so unpredictable, it's what makes it so addictive, I think, and what makes it so great in that it feels much more real, I think, than when things are easy. And
Hmm.
so that I think is one of the really, really great parts about it. And so, you mentioned the family. Like there's a family that I have worked with and been on a few different trips with. Last year, I took them on a private trip in Brazil to see Amazonian river dolphins. And what's kind of unique about this family is that their child has a very particular medical condition that makes life difficult for her in a lot of ways, right? She is losing her sight in some ways, and there are just a number of difficulties she has to deal with. And what's interesting is that the mother and father have actually been divorced for a long time as well, but their child loves whales, loves cetaceans and dolphins so much that they really want to try everything they can to enable this dream for her. And so they always still get together as a family and go on four trips whenever they can. And I got a chance to lead them to see Amazonian river dolphins in Brazil, in this like really special place that I go to see them. And it's just such an incredible, rewarding experience for me when I get to be a part of things like that. She is such an inspiration. The family, the mother and fa father, are such an inspiration in so many ways. And they are just, it's amazing when I get a chance to enable that, right? It's both the amazing and hard thing about this job for me. That was a particular case, but for almost all my guests when they come on this trip, like I'll use the recent 2 weeks I led in Norway as an example. It's a really big step in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of for so many people, this is their life dream to be able to see orcas or see humpback whales or see other things. And so I always feel an immense amount of pressure in order to enable that, right? And the thing I have to do is make sure I do everything I can that's in my control to enable that and to provide a really amazing experience for them, but also know that I can't force something that isn't there. My company is called Thoughtful for a reason, and that one of my biggest guiding principles is making sure that we do things that are good for the animals, that minimize the invasiveness of our experiences, that really try to put them first and not have a self-centered experience, right? And so there are times where maybe if we haven't seen something, if the guests really want to have an experience, that there's a lot of pressure on me or a boat captain or what have you to kind of force an encounter and just drop people in, and that's never something I ever want to do, right? And so um, it's really amazing to get a chance to help enable people's dreams. And when it works, it's really the best part of this. Like I got into it for the wildlife, but the reason I stay into it is because I get a chance to enable these really amazing experiences for people, and that's an incredibly rewarding thing. But the thing I always have to keep in mind from my position is I also never want to do anything to compromise like the integrity of the experience or the integrity of like the wildlife. And so it's always that striking that balance, right? To use the pressure as a good motivator to do things really well and to run a good trip and to have things completely organized and things like that, but not have it as a thing that clouds our judgment into doing something that's not going to be good for the experience or for the animals, right?
Yeah. I think that's also my biggest drive in my work actually. Like because when I see like I had now I think between 250 or 300 clients and one-on-ones in coaching, and pretty much everyone changed their life in any specific way. Like some in an immense way where they moved to another country and changed their entire career, or others just with like small adjustments. But in every case, this gratitude that you're getting from these people, and also knowing that there was the chance to give an impact to change somebody's life for the better, is just like something that's I don't know. It's a fulfillment that yeah, I can't explain in words how this feeling is for that. And especially what I feel also is being an inspiration through that is amazing. Because sometimes I don't even think about it. I'm just following what feels best for me. I'm since I'm 21, I think I've been traveling abroad out of Europe, and I was always interested in new cultures and I don't know. I think the real wildlife stuff just started, I don't know, some years ago, not that long ago. But now I'm like, I don't really want to go to any place anymore where there's no expedition included, or like if it's just for chill and it's at the beach, okay, maybe if it's really needed, but elsewise, I'm more up to do like expeditions where you see something, or where free diving is involved, or now I'm gonna try the hiking, which I thought I would never like, but if it's this is so funny, it's also like a sporty motivation. If it's connected with something in the nature where you know, okay, I'm gonna see some animals, then I'm actually more motivated to do it. Even though hiking and running and stuff is not my favorite thing to do, but maybe it's becoming something that I like more then. So this is also things that I really like, because some people they say, okay, I did this my entire life, so I'm gonna continue that. But I think every person can have values and they can change within the time. Every phase of life, you can change, and I think you should change throughout life. And just trying out different things, different sports, meeting new people. And I'm just so grateful that when I was 21, I had the courage to go by myself to Miami and study in West Palm Beach. And I was the only one from my university who got sent because it was just one scholarship. And yeah, I was so happy that I did that, because just through that, the people that I met were amazing. And it went throughout the years, it was always continuing like that. And then the connection that you're making with people is just like incredible. You're meeting people along the way. I met one girl in Miami. She was living in Alaska and she's Russian. And some years later, I went again to Florida for a visit, and then also to New York. And somehow on Facebook or something, she saw that I'm traveling to New York and she texted me. And then we figured out that she's living in New Jersey now. And she took a day off to pick me up from the airport. And we went to without knowing, we went just in the city. So we went to the Rockefeller Center, and there was the tree lighting at that day. And Mariah Carey was singing on stage and stuff. And this is just things that I was like, wow, this is stuff that happens in a movie, but I wasn't like, it happens actually since years that this happens in my life, because just being faithful, just going out, open, and receiving all these miracles that are happening all the entire time. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Like, yeah.
I think that's a really good way of putting it, that no matter what you've been able to do, all the other experiences that you have in your life, as long as you stay open to being able to receive, like you said, these little miracles that come, sometimes you can get things that are totally unexpected and that allow you to grow in ways that you never expected before, right? Like I have a client who she grew up in a really powerful, influential family. She went on to be a CEO of different companies, has accomplished so much in the business world, and is a really incredible woman in so many ways. But it was not until later in her life she started doing these more wildlife expeditionary, highly uncertain type of risks. I mean, type of trips, right? And so I was first with her in Norway and then also in Dominica with sperm whales there. And she had so much trepidation at first to do them, not only the hard physical aspects, but all these other aspects that are let's say out of her control. But not only getting a chance to be in the water, but to do new experiences. Like in Dominica, we went to a waterfall, like this really incredibly beautiful waterfall, um, in the jungle with, really powerful water coming down. And it was the first time she had been in a waterfall like that, and to have the experience of the water coming down on her. And we just spent maybe like 30 minutes sitting by the water afterwards, talking about how this was such an amazing experience for her, right? And so I guess the reason I'm telling that story is that she had already had so many amazing experiences in her life. She was a CEO of companies. She did such incredible things, but she still also had room and capacity to do more and have unexpected and to continue to grow, right? And so, like you said, as long as you're open to receiving these miracles, you can still keep growing and keep having really incredible life experiences.
Yeah, and I think also the key is to really just trust and just go for it because our brain thinks a lot and the logic mind tries to grasp on things, but it's ridiculous how less things we can really control in our life. Pretty much we can give it a frame. We can like have probably some people have contracts in their jobs or leasing, like renting contracts for the house or stuff. This gives like security. Okay, I understand that, but in the end, everything in life is uncertain somehow. And the more we just like lean into that and just go for it and try out and see how it goes and go further, the more incredible things really happen because it's beyond our logical mind what life has to offer, because like the what I really do a lot with my clients is like to understand the intuition because it's a very powerful thing and a lot of people they unfortunately lost their connection with the intuition to really just like feel this like, oh, I should go left, no idea why, but this is just a feeling, and then you meet someone that you haven't seen for a while on that way. Or there's so many things in my life that I could give it as an example, because it's all about energy even with the animals. There's some stories like in I don't know anymore in the area, but I think Azores or something like that. There was a sailing boat outside, and it was like far out in the sea. And somehow, eventually, a storm got up, but the guy on the boat he didn't knew about it. And then there were dolphins coming his way, and somehow they were all the time going in another direction that he wanted to go. So he was just curious and following the dolphins, figuring out in the end that they saved him of the storm. And this is just stuff that is like, it's crazy when you think about that. Because animals can obviously not directly communicate with us because they're speaking like kind of a different language, but in the end, it's all connected. And it's crazy how things are happening. Also with the whales themselves, with the humpback whales, how they're sensing energies throughout 30 kilometers or something, how the sounds traveling that they're singing underwater. This is just crazy, like and I think until you don't experience that yourself, it's hard to believe that. And some people are like, oh yeah, you're such a lucky person. This is just like, I don't know, it's all falling into your lap. But it's not, I don't think that's the case. I think it's all about work, it's about mindset work and being open and trust. And that's like a process that every person could do if they want to.
Yeah, I think you bring up really two important points, and 2 points that have been really big drivers in my life, both on the side of intuition and on the side of doing the work, like you said. So one of the things that I think is one of my best qualities, and one of the things I always want to keep in my life is a few years ago, one of my close friends said that the thing that she always liked the most about me was that I always followed my breadcrumbs. And like what she meant by it and what I really appreciated is that there have often been times in my life where I know where I'm at right now, and I kind of have a vague idea of where I want to go, right? There's like you said, that intuition, that pull towards something, but you don't know quite how you're going to navigate that messy middle to get there, right? All the steps in between are uncertain, and you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. You don't know exactly the impact on all these other areas in your life. You just know generally the kind of direction you want to go to. And what I've been really thankful for is I've always kind of trusted to just keep following those little breadcrumbs, keep following those clues from one step to the next to kind of get to that next point, right? And not be afraid of that messy middle. And I'm really glad I've done that because it's led me to some really incredible, unexpected paths in my life and led me to what I'm doing now. And I think where the doing the work part comes in is that what's also really important in that is also creating, in my opinion, the life structure, the financial structure, all these different things in your life to help enable you to go down that road and navigate that messy middle. Because I think when you do that, you want things to be, like you said, there are not many things in our control in life. You have all these other forces acting upon you all the time. But the way I like to think about it is that I like to think that I want to create a life structure that will enable my success in what I do to be as close to inevitable as I can. In that, I think if you look at the world of business, oftentimes we think of business leaders and business decisions as, oh, they took this really big risk on something and they're trying to do this big thing and they succeeded and that's how they got to success. But I think if you look at it deeper, most of the time, if you look at those things deeper, they're actually structuring it where what they do will become almost inevitable over time because they have a structure that enables their success, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really try to do with my life and my finances and things like that, where I don't have any fear that I'm not going to be successful in what I do. The ultimate thing may change, or the how big or how small it ends up being, or how much revenue I generate may be different, right? But I just know that with the life structure I have, it's just a matter of time. If I keep doing a thing I'm passionate about over time, inevitably you're going to have opportunities and miracles happen and different things that are happening and things that continue to compound. So it's about, like you said, following the intuition, but also having like a rigorous structure that allows you to do it in a way that is up to you and not be shaped by outside forces and not have the decision forced upon you, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, also what you said with the breadcrumbs is a good example because it's like you don't see the big goal, like you have a vision probably, but then small steps that are leading towards it. Because that's what makes people like paralyzed or something if they see this like big goal and then they're like, oh my God, like I don't even know how to get there, and then self-doubts are popping in and all this. But if you go step by step by step by step, and then the self-awareness, self-confidence, everything grows within time. And also consistency, just staying, like just going on and on and on, and like staying disciplined and just going forward, like as you said, then it's like inevitable. Oh my God, how do you say this word? Inevitable.
Yeah, inevitable. Yeah.
Inevitable. Oh
And
my God, my English
yeah.
is getting rusty. I'm in Germany too long now. Um, so yeah, it's getting like very clear that you're getting towards that goal then. And also, what I believe is that if you're really going for your passion, like what you're passionate about, and you're having an intention in your head why you're doing that, then it's way more easy. Because for me, since I'm coaching, I don't like obviously I have days where I'm not motivated and I have to push myself and stuff. And there's topics that I'm like, okay, less interested in, like taxes and stuff. But even taxes, I now like to do them, to do the tax declarations and stuff, because I created a system for myself that is motivating me to see how much money I get, to how much money I have to put in, and to calculate and stuff. And I think with everything, we can like find a way to make it more playful, and then it's fun in the end. And also, yeah, realizing in the end what's the small successes throughout the way and stuff. And yeah, I think for my coaching, I don't really feel anymore I have these days where I'm like, oh no, my God, I don't want to go in this coaching session now. I never had that. I really never had that. And so I think that's also very important, because to really figure
Yeah.
out what you like the most and why, like what's the thrive behind that. So changing people's lives, inspire others, making an impact. So I think that's also very important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you hit on two really important points. Like the one where you said making sure the process is fun, because I think you really have to enjoy the process of it. Um, the journey along the way, that's like the biggest part. And that's where you're gonna be spending the majority of the time, because you're never really gonna reach the end point. Like the end point is always gonna be something that's changing along the way. But the important thing is, do you enjoy the process and enjoy the work that gets to there? And is it enabling a life that you really like? Because if it does, then like I said, you are gonna get there, because if you enjoy the process, you're gonna get better at it, and you're gonna keep compounding your success with it, and eventually you're gonna get to that place you want to, right? And I think the other thing I wanted to talk about is, I think the confidence part is important as well. And I think the important part to keep in mind is that when you're first starting on a new path or a new journey, something, you are going to be not confident in
Mhm.
it. I think people, when they get there, they realize they're not confident. That's what scares them away. But being not confident is actually right in that situation, because I think there are lots of different ways you can think about confidence. But I think one way of thinking about it is confidence is demonstrated proficiency, right? Confidence is when you have shown that you're able to do a thing
Mhm.
well. And when you're starting on something new, of course, you don't have confidence. You haven't done that thing well,
Mhm.
right? So I think you shouldn't let that necessarily scare you off, though. But like you said, how do you figure out the small steps on the way to start doing some small parts of that thing and showing that actually, okay, now I have competence, like I can do this part and this part and this part. Then all of a sudden, you do more of those parts, and all of a sudden, you can do the whole thing. And then that's what gives you confidence as you start showing to yourself that, oh, actually, I can do this. I can be a coach. I can be a wildlife guide. I can be, an investor, like all these different things, right? It doesn't come all at once. You don't have to fake it. It comes from just doing small parts until you've shown to yourself that you can do it.
For sure. I mean, with a fake it, it's funny because I don't know if you know the movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. No?
No.
That he is pretty much faking every kind of academic career that you could imagine. And like being a pilot and being, I don't know, I haven't watched that film since quite a while, but he's pretty much stepping in a lot of different careers without really having the competence to do that. And I think it's a very cool movie to get inspiration to, if you can believe or imagine yourself being a teacher or whatever kind of profession that you want to do, is possible. It's 100% possible. Like, of course, you need a qualification in many countries for a specific type of jobs, but in general, what I'm talking about is like if you're having the fun to for example, teach people, why not doing it? And it doesn't have to be like the way being in school and teaching kids. It can be every kind of way. Like one woman came up to me once and asked me if I can teach her how to lose her fear of the water, of being underwater with her head. And I was a swimming trainer when I was in school for kids. But since this, I haven't done it anymore. But I've been doing a dive master job for a while, a little bit surf instructor for fun and stuff. So I knew I'm able to do it. And it was just so much fun to do it. And it's nothing that I was like forcing to achieve or something. It's just that she asked me, and I felt a total yes because I want to help her to be comfortable in the water because I love to be in the water, and I think it's a pity if people don't like to be in the water. Um, so yeah, there's so many ways and so many options in life because yeah, there's so many career options in this life. It's crazy. It's so cool. I mean, I've met in Tonga a woman that is above 70, and she told me at breakfast that she just started to study law, and now she started her third passion in her life to be a lawyer. Um, and I was so impressed because she could be retired, but she just does it for fun. And then there are people who are like 50 and a midlife crisis or something, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know, I'm too old to change. This is not true. Every person can, when whatever type of age, they could just do it and give it a try. And this is very cool, I think, because we're all living just once, except if we believe in reincarnation. But yes, there's so many things possible in this life. And then going through life, I think I've been always going through life with a curiosity. And then, I don't know, people tell me always, like, are you ever getting bored? And yes, actually, I'm trying to create moments where I'm getting bored because then all this space is coming up with new ideas. But elsewise, I'm probably not a lot of times bored. But it's a decision, you know. Every person can decide how they want to create their life. So I think that's very.
I think you hit on a really important point in that I think we often underestimate what we are capable of.
Mhm.
Because sometimes it's hard to see from where we get from our current position to where we want to be, or sometimes we cannot even imagine all these other possibilities for ourselves. Certainly, I never thought I would have this life or be this version of myself, but I'm glad I did not limit myself to it. I think so often we inadvertently or sometimes purposefully limit ourselves for the way we speak or the way we think about what we're capable of when we're often capable of so much more, like you said, right? And I think one of the things that I keep coming back to, it's a saying that I think can be a little bit trite, but I think it's really true in that we often overestimate what we can achieve in a day, but underestimate what we can achieve in a year. And I think that's been very, very true in my life that what you're capable of in a year's time or 5 years' time is often way bigger and much more different than you think right now. And, if you give yourself the grace and the capability to do so, I think you'll be surprised at how much change is possible in you. Because it happens slowly in a sense, it happens day after day, but the compounding effect of it after a year is often so much bigger than you would ever think about at first.
That's true. Yeah, 100%. Um, Yeah, I think I have a lot of topics that I could could talk about this what you just mentioned now as well. But what do you think is the most important thing for someone that would love to have more passion in the life, like passionated things, more thrive, like who's maybe a little bit scared? Curious but scared to do those steps. What kind of recommendation would you give a person like that?
Yeah, I guess I'll combine a few of the things I touched on in our conversation so far. I think the first is, like you said, not being afraid of that messy middle. It is going to be uncertain and messy as you navigate this process from something you know to something you don't know. That's, of course, going to be the case. So don't let that turn you off. Like, know that going in because that process is actually going to be a really, I think, interesting and enjoyable one. If you enjoy the work, if you enjoy the process of figuring it out, and just trust the process because if you keep making steps in the direction, that is going to compound and you are going to make progress where you're going. And that goes to the second thing that I talked about in that I think you have to create a life structure and a financial structure that makes sense for you, that will enable you to navigate that in a way that's comfortable for you. Like if you don't have a structure set up that gives you enough confidence to set off on that journey, then you're going to be setting yourself up for failure, or you're not going to give yourself enough time for miracles to happen and for magic to happen and for things to succeed, right? I think one of the biggest things when you're starting off on this journey is just making sure that you can survive the ups and downs, both, literally financially, but also emotionally that goes along with it. And so having that structure in your life to enable that will allow you to have more chance to succeed. And I think the last thing is, again, don't be afraid at the beginning if you don't feel confident in it, because that is what you're supposed to be feeling, in my opinion. You're supposed to not feel confident because you haven't built it yet. You haven't shown your ability to do it yet. If you feel confident during that point, I almost feel like it's not confidence, it's more like bullshit, right? But what happens that if you start making steps along it, if you do the work, if you just trust the process of it, you're going to develop your skills. You're going to develop your proficiency and your competence and your ability to do it. And then, like we were just talking about it, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or a year or whatever down the road, all of a sudden you're going to wake up and feel, oh my goodness, like I'm this thing now. Like I've built myself and my abilities to be able to confidently say I am this thing now, because you've shown yourself that you can actually do it, right? And so um I think it's an amazing journey no matter what you choose to end up doing, but as long as at least for me, those are the things that really worked as I've navigated this, all these different changes in my life, right? Um, and hopefully with the people that you work with and the people that you help coach and all their journeys along the way, like I hope, they're all successful in what they choose to be doing as well.
And I think about the emotional and financial stuff also, like a lot of people that I know are very sensitive in terms of emotions, but also very intelligent and very, they can sense a lot of things that normal people don't see right away, I would say. And that could be overwhelming at times as well. But I think that every person is all about mindset. Everything, emotional and finance, even financial stuff is about mindset. Because if you understand how your emotions function, let's say, it can be a guiding system. And same with the financial stuff. So when you have a proper money mindset, and that's something every person could learn. There can be people who were born in families that don't have much money and that have difficulties with money, and they don't know how to save the money and stuff. But it's all learnable. Like you can all learn this stuff. I mean, I'm very grateful because the way I grew up with my family, my parents gave me a good mindset about finance. And that made it, of course, easier for me, for sure. But also throughout the time, it was very important for me always to earn my own money. Since I'm 18, I'm earning my own money. And for me, that gave me so much confidence that I know no matter what, I'll always find a solution. And no matter what, financial wise, I'll be always safe in kind of a way. And it's something that you can all learn, because some people might say now, oh, it's easy for you to say you're an investor, whatever, or I study business economics and stuff. Yes, but still, it doesn't mean that just being by studying business economics that you know how business works. It's like, and I think it's all about the mindset. So when you allow yourself to also be able to earn proper money and to be able to invest it in a way that makes sense, or to hold that money, and not just spending it all away again, or being wise about how spending it, I think that's also very important, because if you want to do business, I think that's the base to have a proper mindset and know how to structure, and also how to calculate, how to do your finance. And I think that's something every person who is playing with that idea, building a business or going further, should have in mind to give basics of finance and mindset work. Yeah.
Completely. And I think that's why it's so important. Like you said, it's all learnable. And I think it's really important to learn, because I think the biggest mistake you can go if you want to lead a life that is different, alternative, creative, artistic, is to think, oh, these things don't matter to me because I'm going to do this more creative path. And in my opinion, it matters so much more because if you're on a traditional path working at a company, all those things are kind of taken care of for you. And you don't have to think about it that much. But if you want to go and lead a very different type of life, you have to be the one that is on top of it and has knowledge of it and can use it to enable the life that you want because otherwise you're not going to be able to have success in doing it, right? So I completely agree with you.
Nice. What is your vision? What would you like? What would you say? Like, if you, I don't know if you're doing like these plans for the beginning of the year or something, what you want to achieve by the end of the year and stuff. For me, it's more like a life vision. But what is your vision that you want to head on? Like, what is your biggest, what would be the most incredible thing that could happen where you're like, wow, that's a dream of yours?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm living a dream that I have now already. Like, I think I've been fortunate that I've lived a few different dreams, actually. What I did before was a dream for me. And so I do not have a particular goal right now in terms of how big I want this business to get. I don't have a particular goal in terms of revenue or clients or things like that. I have an overall net worth goal that I'm working towards in my life that would enable kind of like the financial independence that I want. Like I feel good that I'm like a good amount of the way there, and that hopefully this will continue to enable that, right? But I have an overall again life financial goal that I'm working towards and how that will enable all these other things in my life. But for this particular business, the thing I care about the most is am I doing what's right for the places I'm going to, for the animals that I'm seeing? Am I doing all I can for my clients? Because again, they are so often entrusting me with a live stream and a huge investment of money and time into doing so. So I want to make sure that I do the very best I can for them. And the reason I set off to do this is to be able to do really cool things with people I like, right? And so for me, if I continue to do that, then I feel that it's going great. Like that's what I want to continue doing. If I'm failing on none of those particular things, if I'm not doing the right thing for clients, if I'm not doing the right thing for the animals, or if I'm not having fun and discovering new things, discovering new destinations, then then that to me is failure, not necessarily the size of the business. Like it's growing and it'll keep growing and I think it'll do great. But to me, it's about maximizing those other things over having a set goal with where I want the business to be. The goal is my overall finances, right? And so that's how I think about it for myself.
So for me, a vision is also way more than financial. It's more like where do you want to, I don't know, as you said, like how do you want your customers to feel, or what kind of customers do you want to have in your expeditions and stuff? Because I think that's important. You don't want to have people who are unsatisfied if they don't see what they were supposed to see in the nature because they know it's not predictable. So being with ethical people that have a similar mindset and similar values in life, I think that's something that's very important for myself, at least for the clients. And choosing which clients I'm working with now, because I think it's very important now with whom I'm spending time with in my life. And coaching is a big energy exchange. So I'm really like looking at those ethically, also looking for like their goals, what they want to achieve. Is it matching with my own values as well somehow? Do I want to support that idea, for instance? So I think that's something that is way more valuable also than the money goal or the financial success in the end. And one comes with the other anyways. Just to say, like,
Yeah, yeah, completely, completely. It's why, again, I think structure is so important. Like I've set up this structure that I don't have to take on any clients that I don't want to.
yeah.
And that I think it's important to have like the right clients, like you said, the way I market my business and think about it is very particular, and I know that it's not going to be a fit for everyone, and that's okay. If it's not going to be a fit for a particular person, I'm really happy to recommend other people, other businesses that I think do a good job and have the right mindset, but do things differently than me. That might be a better fit for them,
Yeah.
right? But what I care about is if hopefully for the people that go on, my particular expeditions and my with my business that they're aligned with the way I think about things because then it's going to be a better experience for everyone. That I can offer them the thing that will hopefully be what they're looking for, right?
Yeah,
And if I can't, then I'm happy to refer them to someone who can.
exactly. Yeah. Nice. Do you have anything that you want to share in the end now? Any wise words or stuff that you have in mind that you haven't said yet?
No, I mean, I'm 30, I'm about to be 37 years old. I think if you take wise words from any 37-year-old, I think that's a mistake, right? But
I don't
I
think
feel like I've
so. I don't think it's depending on the age, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've had a chance to do really incredible things in my life. I feel very lucky to have the life that I do. I did not expect to have the life that I have now. And I want to keep on doing this as long as I can. And this, partly the expedition, but partly I just mean be in control of who I want to be, do the things I want to do, and have a life that enables that, right? And so for me, that's an important thing. And I want to be able to do lots of different things in my life. Like, I don't think this is the end. I think there's going to be probably two or three more versions of me in the future. And I think that's a really exciting thing. I don't think we should have to limit ourselves to be one thing or the other. I think we should be many different things because we all have many different things in our lives and many different layers in our lives. And I just want to continue exploring that and continue to be curious. And, for all your listeners and other people that you work with, I hope as they go on their journeys, I think a lot of the people that you work with are trying to make a change in their lives as well. Like, I hope they have all the success with that and they enjoy the journey of it because the journey is like, it's a gift to get a chance to do this. Not
Yes.
everyone has a chance to make the journey and to make a change, but we do. And even with all the ups and downs and the challenges along the way, it's a gift to get a chance to do that.
100%, yeah. I think that's a good end to if you took anything from this podcast, I think it's like stay curious, give it a try, and just do it. And yeah, thank you so much, Alex. It was very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to I will tag Alex's Instagram also in the show notes so that you guys can have a look if you're interested now in what kind of wildlife he's doing. And yeah, I'm very happy if you follow the podcast and also if you're rating 5 stars for the show to get yeah, more people listening to the podcast. And yeah, thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.